introduction to ham radio. So I have a lot of kind of emotion and feelings for field day. And so I think it's a good thing. It's a good, I think another good thing that I thought about field day this year was, from my perspective, is that we recruited a lot of new hams. There was a significant number of new hams. Jeremy was out there. How long you been ham? 2 months. Okay. He was out there operating my radio just like a pro. It's a social gathering. It's kind of pseudo camping without camping. Kind of camping, but not camping. It's doing something different, and it does tweak that little bit of that emergency preparedness bug that we, I think a lot of us hope that we never use, but at the same time we feel obligated to be prepared to do. How many of you carry something in your car right now for emergency preparedness related to ham radio? Let's say, maybe 30-40% of the room. So I carry 15 meters and 10 meter. I carry HF in my vehicle, so I'm ready, hopefully. Okay, I believe anything that's scored is a competition. That's what I believe. So even though, okay.
How many people still have field day equipment in their car?
How many? Yeah. I know Brian just unloaded the trailer. Yeah, I know Brian unloaded his trailer just the other day. So, okay. Next slide. I think the key motivation behind field day is the get out of jail free card. Okay, there is a large number of hams that do not get on HF. Believe it or not. There is a large number. How many people know a ham in this room that's only on UHF, VHF, or repeaters? I have one. And we're only two of us, or was there three? Okay, know some of them, right? So, so there's a large number of people that don't even get on HF, but they have their ham license and they're basically using their 2-meter radio and 70 centimeter. So this is their opportunity to get out of jail free. A lot of people a number of people have told me that, well, I don't know what I would say. Well, the exchange is pretty common. You get them through it. The number of people that we had going through the GOTA station this time, just doing that simple exchange was a real phenomenal event. And I have some pictures here of some new hams that were just basically set them in place and they go. Okay, they spent some time on the GOTA station, and then they came out into the field and worked some of the field stations. They were operating as if, they got over their fright mic, their mic fright, or whatever. It's mic fright of you. I'm afraid of meaning. Okay, but anyways, I still think it was, you really get out of jail free because, how many people did an exchange where they said, CQ field day, and then somebody comes back and doesn't even get your call right, half right, and then they would say, oh, you mean 9A? No. 19A? No. 9A? No. You have to go through that process because it's a unheard of number. And then you hear the laughing on the other end of it. Oh, now I understand. So it's a really kind of a good event to get out of jail. You can do, it's not really high pressure, stuff like that. So that's why I think is one of its main motivations is that. Okay, next slide. We all have, different modes, things like that. If we were operating on a battery, we had people running battery, we had people running power, we had a lot of people on a lot of different modes. The interesting thing is, we went the gamut. We had everything to 10 gig and everything down to in the UHF, VHF, and all of HF, at least in one band covered. So the thing is, definitely people could walk around and see just about every single mode of operation on this event if they wanted to go from one event to another. So it's a great, quote unquote, I call learning event for those other modes that you don't know about or haven't experienced yourself as a ham. So next question, how many hams in this room operate CW, sideband, and digital on a regular basis? Okay, we have 3. How many of you operate just 2 of those 3 modes regularly? Okay. And how many of you are just exclusive CW operators? You don't typically find them, so, but there are people that are got the bent for CW and like it and enjoy it and stuff like that, so that's why I think it's another good event that you can kind of overcome those fears. Next slide. So what we planned, what we did, the story goes, we were sitting at Mr. Bean's on a Friday afternoon, and we were talking about the fire truck, and I can't think of his name right now. I'm drawing a blank. Van Hoosen. Dan. Dan was saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool to lift up an antenna with a fire truck? I'm sitting there, oh, yeah, that would be cool. And then have it 26A. Well, I said 26A just because I was thinking I wanted to beat somebody. And I saw one year that there was a 25A or something like that. So that's why I said 26A. Reasonably, what we did with 19A was a good number, because we had a smattering of UHF, VHF modes, we had satellite, we had 6 meters, we had a majority of what I would call the reasonable HF bands covered. Now, we didn't cover 10 meter, what did we miss on 10 meters, Barry? You did?
We just did phone.
We just did phone, so we didn't do DC, and I don't know, how many contacts did you have on 10?
125.
Do you think we would have had any on digital?
No.
I don't think so.
I had one request for CW. So
And one request for CW? Okay. When 10 is hot, it's hot, and it's a fun band to be on, but I don't think we were going to get any digital contacts. So that was one of the reasons why I kind of slid off the bottom on 10. And the other reason I slid off on the 80 was, you know, I really didn't feel like it's difficult to make an 80-meter loop, I think, and make it efficient enough. And I think it's also very difficult to get, you know, it's very difficult to operate, right? It's very difficult, very noisy. You know, I would have been interesting to see how an 80-meter loop would have performed. We didn't put ours up, but it would have been interesting to do that. So I kind of focused people into the middle, you know, trying to fill the operators in the middle, because that's where the points were. And I tried to get lead captains in those the major bands for, you know, our best, definitely phone on 20, definitely 40-meter phone. Those are your 2, and then after that, it's the same thing, CW on 20 and CW on 40. Those are the 2, those are the money bands, they call them. So after that, you're going to slide left and right to get points. So next slide. Yeah, I don't know, Charlie, who were you tapping on the shoulder? Who wore this shirt? Does anybody know? I thought it was I looked at this shirt, I saw it that day, and I said, yeah, it was easier last time, I think. But maybe it would be easier the next time, since we did it this way this time. You know, I'm sitting there thinking, you know, the question was, how easy can you make it to make field day successful, right? That's what you're always asking yourself. And so there was a couple things that we tried to do making it easy, like 1, cutting down on the number of power sources. I really didn't want to have to service a whole bunch of generators. The other thing is that I didn't really want to put up a lot of pole kits, and I didn't really want to put up, you know, 40 feet of Roan, you know, tower sections either, and get rotors and all that sort of stuff. I wanted to make it a little bit more simple, right? Going back to the roots of saying, hey, what can you do with simple? But we did go a little bit on the technology side with the loops, and the loops did work. But the thing is, the question you have to ask yourself is, how much effort do you have, and how many people and the resources that you have that you can pull something off? That's kind of what you're looking at, right? You can't, the field day isn't going to be successful just because of me, right? And it's a requirement of everybody contributing. So, next slide. Well, you can't really see this picture, but this is Ken and who's the other guy? Ken. Phil, Ken and Phil, and they're leaning forward on their the quad runners there. And so I thought it was kind of an interesting picture, is that it's a little fun to have a little internal drive, a little competition inside the group, because that always kind of spurs a little bit more. I noticed that in this event. And one of the lessons learned I saw is that some people were egging other people on to do this and other things to do that. And so the thing is, it was just kind of funny, is they're both like pretending that they're drag racing there. But that was another thing that was interesting, is that we overcame the first hurdle that we had right off the bat, and that was poor conditions of the field and driving on it. My intention was to drive my Suburban right up to my location, set up actually part in my Suburban, and have an overnight tent, and that changed because we couldn't drive. We could have probably, but we would have rutted it up and tore it up and probably done more mean things to the 18 acres. Okay, go ahead. Oh, look at this. It's fun to get new folks involved. Mike was here. I thought, this is classic. This guy, Mike came, he has his pencil, the classic pencil for logging in his hat. He's got his cooler. The other thing I thought was interesting is that Mike brought his bike. I realized after this event, 18 acres and the number of times I walked around, that's a lot of walking. I did, most field day events that I've been to, we walk to the house, we walk out to the barn, we walk to the back, it's kind of all kind of close together. You're not even walking a block, right? Well, this one, man, we were walking a lot. How many felt the walking was quite a bit? Yeah. I mean, I was thinking yeah. It took a lot longer to get to the shelter when it was raining. But anyways, I thought Mike was the classic, I'm prepared, I'm going to have fun, award king, and I really enjoyed Mike being there because his enthusiasm and excitement was just overwhelming to me, and I thought it was fun just to, I just thought this was a good picture. Mike ready to go out, tackle the world there, his cooler on his side. I don't know how he's going to get the cooler down to a spot with his bike, but he could have done it. So, next slide. We started early. We set up stuff early. We got porta potties. We got the tent. There were some people thought, well, maybe we don't need the tent. Some people thought we needed the tent. I don't know what the general consensus was, but I think everybody after this time said, well, let's just do our own thing. We don't really need the entertainment tent, because it was kind of overkill for just the digital stations. Plus, it still congregated people. Most other people got together under their pop-up tent or, whatever they brought for sunshade and stuff like that. So I don't know. My personal feeling is if I was doing this again, I would just say bring your own shelter. Prepare for shelter, and then you can also there's the pros and cons of it. Some groups like to be in a tent of common location. But then you have to have an extreme amount of coax to do 19A if you ever did that. But if you did a smaller operation, maybe 3 stations or 4, it might be fun just to have a tent and all be under one roof. It's really where you guys want to be at. So, we ended up having, porta potties. We had I thought we would be able to eliminate porta potties from this operation and cut the cost of it, but we found out that the Hiawatha is really high tech, and their porta potties lock at
Around 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, and then I think Dan would go over there and make sure it's propped open, but then somebody would come by and not understand the rules.
Lockout again.
And so we lost it both nights. So we could have asked Hiawatha to reprogram it, but that was one of the things that they just didn't want to do. So that's why we did the porta potties. I don't think they were used very much, but they were sure nice to have. And I think Hiawatha would have had a little problem with us going out on the grass or in the trees. But a real field day, that's what you do, right? I don't know. Maybe you don't. Anyways, I don't think our operation was totally bent on, pounding scores in, and I also noticed that there's a lot of social time just in the different areas, like the SAT temp that had, I think 10 meters was there, UHF, VHF, and Wyatt under the car carrier. Wyatt brought that car carrier tent. That was great. I think that was, every time I went over there, was a little hub of activity of people sitting there talking about stuff, and Wyatt would get so distracted talking to people, all of a sudden he'd see his antennas moving, and he would, hey, I have a contact coming. Because his antennas were telling him that he had a contact coming. I don't know if you guys knew that, but he'd sit there and yammer away with me, and then all of a sudden he looks up and he says, my antenna's moving. I said, what does that mean? I have a contact to make. So he had a little indication that he had a contact to make. So that's kind of an interesting side of satellite. What?
I didn't get a chance.
Yeah. So Wyatt's setup was, he basically schedules all the sats in there, and again, his equipment starts moving when he's starting to see it. His prediction says the satellite's there. So that's kind of interesting, right? So.
The equipment to set main plant up that way.
Right. Yep. It doesn't take much. PC Sat 32 is what he uses. It's an amateur AMSAT program. The guy gives all the money to AMSAT. So that's what he uses. So anyways, I thought that was interesting. Let's go on. Technical stuff. One of the things that we wanted to try to do is cut down an intermod, right? And try to set up a system that, I worked a field day where Dennis Sutherland was on 20 meters digital, and I was on 20 meter phone, and I was constantly getting hammered by him on digital. We had tried to create a stub at that day, I think we laid out the wire, we laid out the coax, we even cut the stubs, but they didn't work very well, Dennis, and you were